A heart that never fears, can you imagine that? And the only tears we weep are tears of joy. Every hunger satisfied, and every baby's cry would be heard. A soul that never grieves, can you imagine that? And a father never leaves his child alone. The darkness has no power, no desperate lonely hours to make it through until the morning light. And we would see the hope in each sunrise. In a perfect world, there would always be a second chance allowed. In a perfect world, there would be enough love to go around somehow, and peace would be the sweetest sound on earth in a perfect world. A faith with wings to fly, can you imagine that? And the will to try is never far away. Everyone would know their call, and something in us all would love to see a wounded spirit healed, and live to see each other's dreams fulfilled. In a perfect world, there would always be a second chance allowed. In a perfect world, there would be enough love to go around somehow, and peace would be the sweetest sound on earth in a perfect world. Truth would never be in question, and life would last forever, and God would bind our hearts together. Now wouldn't that be heaven? In a perfect world, there would always be a second chance allowed. In a perfect world, there would be enough love to go around somehow, and peace would be the sweetest sound on earth in a perfect world.
Invocation. The charge of invocation is to declare the glory of God. And in declaring the glory of God, then we expose and expound all of the values and meanings that are associated with God for us. And so, and all of the attributes of grace and mercy, all the attributes of hope, love, and faith, all the attributes of perseverance and determination. We so declare that God has given it to us. And so therefore, we do invoke the name of our God. We do invoke the presence of our God during and within this convocation celebration, so that all the people may know that we, the ITC, are indeed the people of God, blessed and kept forever. In this occasion, O God, we thank you for every mercy and every grace. And to you be glory, dominion, and power forever, for all of the things that you continue to do, that we may express every hope, every determination, every resolve, every commitment. It's in the name of Christ Jesus, we do offer this invocation. In the name of all of our elders and ancestors who prayed that we would get here, let a cool breeze from your throne, O God, blow across them to let them know that we have arrived and that we commit to making life better for generations to come. Glory forever. Amen, amen, ashe, ashe.
I am Dr. Anita Green, class of 2009 and 2015. 63 years ago, countless women and men entered into these gates from different denominations, different cultures, and different classes. 63 years ago, ancestors have hovered over this campus, making sure that everyone who entered into these gates were seen about and taken care of. 63 years ago, many prophetic problem solvers have converged on this campus to see about not only this community, but the world. And now you have entered into these gates to show the world that we are a product of the Interdenominational Theological Center. And now we'd like to recognize our constituent seminaries. Gammon Theological Seminary, Morehouse School of Religion, Phillips School of Theology, Turner Theological Seminary, C.H. Mason Theological Seminary, and Richardson Ecumenical Fellowship. Our prayer is that you continue to strive for excellence and remember our motto, students enter and leaders depart. Enjoy your experience here at the ITC.
Good morning. My name is Reginaldo Braga, and I am the Interim Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost here at ITC. Today I have the distinct privilege to welcome you to ITC's 63rd opening convocation. 63 entering classes before you participated in this ceremony, which marks the beginning of the academic year. This morning, you officially become a part of the ITC community, symbolized by the Sankofa passage. You passed through the Sankofa Square right outside over here, ITC's chosen marker of educational distinction. You were guided by ITC alumni who are also parents of former students. These alumni represent a lifetime connection to ITC, a connection you now share. Opening convocation signifies the start of the academic adventures ahead of you. Today, you and your classmates are presented to and charged by ITC President to rise to these academic challenges and avail yourselves of the many opportunities here at ITC as prophetic problem solvers. So let me say again, welcome class, welcome to ITC.
Prophetic problem solvers, we all have a purpose in God's story. And I am so glad that you had the courage to uncover your purpose, what led you to ITC. My name is Natasha Jordan. I am the Director of Admissions at ITC. And I am, again, just so happy that you're here. I want to offer you a big virtual hug, a high five for what you've already done. It takes courage to go through this process. It takes courage to live out loud and live your purpose through. And you all are doing that. The next voices that you will hear will come from our constituent seminary deans.
Welcome to the Morehouse School of Religion, you, the class of 2021. And we are so happy that you're a part of our family. And by that, I mean the entire Interdenominational Theological Center is your family. And we look forward to serving and working with you through your academic career. I simply have 3 P's that I want to share with you. The first one is plan. The second one is persistence. And then finally, the third one is pray. First, you need to have a plan. That is, cast a vision for your future. Where do you want to be when you finish your academic program? Do you want to be a pastor? Do you want to be a chaplain? Maybe you want to go into missions, or maybe you're going to be in a parachurch organization, or even more, you'll open your own nonprofit, social justice and advocacy. But you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan when you're going to turn your papers in. You have to have a plan which classes you're going to take and from whom at the right time. However, you may have to revise your plan. That is, you may have to revisit the future as it unfolds. As it becomes clearer, you may have to revise and be clear. Secondly, there's always room for being persistent. Seminary education is a high mountain. That's what seminary education is. And on the mountain, there are high peaks and there are low valleys, all of which, however, is on the same mountain. And so you take it as it comes, but you have to be persistent. And then I think finally, there's always room for prayer. Be sure that you pray about everything that you do. Because a seminary education, though it is higher education, it's an academic exercise, it is also a spiritual journey. You're learning how to serve the Lord's people. And through your prayer life while you're in seminary, there are 2 things you need to be aware of. One is God adds. The Lord adds. The Lord will add to you friends from whom the Lord will raise up for you. And that adds definition to everything that you're trying to do. But the Lord also subtracts distractions from you. There'll be people that started on the journey that will not understand as you continue to matriculate through. This is for everyone. It was the same for me. So let's go on this journey together. Let's enjoy it. Let's see what the end will be. And I believe you'll be one of the honor students that will be able to hood from the Morehouse School of Religion of the ITC. And may the Lord bless you and may the Lord keep you. And welcome to the greatest Afrocentric institution in the world.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Paul Lawrence Brown Sr., and I proudly serve as the 8th president and dean of Phillips School of Theology here at the ITC. Phillips is the only seminary of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, and we are a charter member of the ITC Consortia, having moved our seminary from its founding location on the campus of Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. Phillips has a rich history and a storied legacy of preparing men and women for ministry in God's church and the world. Over the past 70 years, graduates of Phillips have gone on to distinguish themselves as bishops of our church, academicians, chaplains, pastors, Christian educators, and prolific authors, just to name a few. And I'm proud to introduce the next generation of leaders who have come to the ITC to begin their theological matriculation. They are Veronica Brown from the 5th Episcopal District, Janet Corley from the 7th Episcopal District, George Dix from the 7th Episcopal District, Carlotta Fickling from the 5th Episcopal District, Talicia Graves from the 7th Episcopal District, and Wilbert Hall from the 8th Episcopal District. Although Wilbert was accepted, he had to withdraw shortly before classes begun due to his work schedule conflicts. However, we will be working with him as he is committed to returning in the spring. We also have Constance King from the 4th Episcopal District, Zachary Mullins, our one and only D-Min student who was accepted this fall, who is from the 3rd, but later transferred this past early August to the 7th Episcopal District. We have Christopher Neal from the 8th Episcopal, Nelson from the 4th Episcopal District, and Geraldine McCullough from the 7th Episcopal District. Finally, we have Travis Morris from the 9th Episcopal District, who was a readmit, and we also have David Young from the 1st Episcopal District, who was a readmit. Each of these students have hit the ground running and are quickly adapting and adjusting to seminary life. We do solicit your prayers for a successful fall semester. Thank you so much. And again, welcome to the ITC.
Hello, I am Dr. Harold Bennett. I am the President Dean of the Charles Harrison Mason Theological Seminary. Thank you so much for deciding to be a part of this great educational experience here in Atlanta, Georgia. I welcome you to the Center for Afrocentric Ecumenicity. I want you to know that you are in the place where I believe with all of my heart that this is a theological headquarters for the Black church. We got a lot going on here at ITC, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I am so glad that you decided to study with us and to prepare for ministry, whichever direction the Spirit of the Lord may be taking you. I want you to know that here at ITC, you have made the right choice. I must warn you, though, recess is over. Recess is over. It's time to get to work. You got a lot of stuff to do, got a lot of material to read, as God says to Moshe as God says to Moshe in that Deuteronomistic history. You'll learn about that a little later, that there still remains much land to be conquered. Looking forward to you and your prosperity here at the ITC. I am Dr. Harold Bennett, Dean of the Charles Harrison Mason Theological Seminary, and on behalf of Dr. David Allen Hall and our Board of Trustees, welcome aboard.
We take this time to welcome and to greet all of the students that are a part of the Interdenominational Theological Center, reflected and known as the Selma T. and Harry V. Richardson Ecumenical Fellowship. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the start of the year. Welcome to the newness of your matriculation. Welcome to this Convocation celebration. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you.
Greetings, phenomenal student body of the ITC 2021-2022 school year. I am your newly elected student government president and the servant leader of the Student Christian League. I want to say to you that this is a significant year. Not only are we still in the midst of the pandemic, we are in a place and in a time where the need for students is imperative. In fact, I say to you, not just welcome to the ITC, but welcome to the resistance. In 1960, just a stone's throw from this particular building, 3 Morehouse students got together and they decided that they were no longer going to take the injustices of their time. They gathered with a committee of students from all the schools of the AUC, including the ITC. And when they gathered, they decided they were going to resist, not the teachers, but the students. And so I say to you this year, welcome to the resistance. Your ITC experience may be virtual, but it does not cease to be spiritual. The academic experience that you're having is going to shake the nations around us. We must do the work of justice while we have the time to do it. We can never change history, but we can always make history. Right here at the crux of whether voting rights should be ours or not, yet again, we have the opportunity to stand and make a difference. So welcome to the resistance. James says it this way: submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. I say this to you this year. Welcome to the resistance. Welcome to the ITC Student Christian League.
It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome back to the Interdenominational Theological Center our speaker for the 2021 Fall Convocation of the ITC, the Reverend Dr. Gina Marcia Stewart. Dr. Stewart is a proud alumna of the ITC, having graduated in 2007 with her Doctor of Ministry degree. She is an embodiment of ITC's mission to cultivate women and men who practice justice and peace through a liberating and transforming spirituality. Her powerful preaching, holistic pastoral ministry, tireless service, and conscientious leadership serve as a model of what it means to be a prophetic problem solver. In March of 1995, Dr. Stewart became the first woman to be elected senior pastor of her mother church, Christ Missionary Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee. She was also the first woman to be elected to lead a Black Baptist congregation in Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee. And since that time, she has distinguished herself as a caring pastor, prophetic preacher, and transformative leader in the Memphis community and beyond. Under Dr. Stewart's leadership, Christ Church has grown numerically, physically, financially, and spiritually, such that it now offers more than 50 ministries addressing the issues of the spirit, the soul, the body, community, and society. Her heart for God and God's people undergird her leadership at a national level on the boards of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. And she recently made history again as the first woman to be appointed to the role of president of the Lot Carey Foreign Mission Convention. Her honors and recognitions are extensive and extraordinary. In February 2021, the Shelby County Commission awarded Dr. Stewart the Living Legend Award in recognition of her outstanding leadership and service. And the prestigious President's Volunteer Service Award and pen were bestowed upon her in June 2021 by President Joseph Biden. I'm pleased to welcome you back to the ITC, Dr. Stewart. And so I want to ask the ITC Village to join me in welcoming the Reverend Dr. Gina Marcia Stewart, Senior Pastor of Christ Missionary Baptist Church and president of the Lot Carey Foreign Mission Convention, our speaker for the 2021 Fall Convocation at the ITC.
To President Williams, to Dr. Reginaldo Braga, to the administration and staff and faculty and the entering class of the Interdenominational Theological Center, or the ITC, my alma mater, I celebrate the work and witness of this institution for its legacy as the only theological institution that houses more than one historically Black denomination, and that cultivates faith-rooted leadership in partnership with 5 Christian denominations, 3 of which are historically Black faith traditions: Baptist, African Methodist Episcopal, Christian Methodist Episcopal, United Methodist, and Church of God in Christ, as well as one at-large constituency, the Selma T. and Harry V. Richardson Ecumenical Fellowship. You're to be commended for over 6 decades of producing faith-rooted leaders distinguished in scholarship, pastoral leadership, public activism, and justice-making that has reached beyond the 4 walls of the church in service to the communal purpose of the Black church, to be a source of hope and restoration to the marginalized and to the disenfranchised. It's my privilege to be a graduate of the ITC, and I want to express my appreciation to Dr. Williams for this invite to share in this convocation, to thanks to Dr. Braga for your assistance, and because I am a 2007 graduate of the D-Min program at the ITC, I have to also acknowledge Dr. Stephen Razor, who was the director of the D-Min program when I attended, Dr. Edward Wimberly, who was my faculty advisor and committee chair, and also want to acknowledge the amazing hospitality of Mama Cece Dixon, who was always there on campus with a smile. It is my understanding that my assignment for today, for this virtual convocation, is to share for a few moments around the theme of the legacies of Black women as prophetic problem solvers. What a fitting and appropriate theme, given the strides and accomplishments of so many Black women, the impactful and increasing public roles that Black women have either taken in community organizing, voter registration, social justice, and ultimately flipping the state of Georgia in other political profiles. And so when Dr. Braga told me the theme for this convocation, I was immediately and mentally transported to the continent of South Africa, where I learned while there that on August 9th of every year, South Africans observe what they call National Women's Day. It's a day to commemorate August 9th, 1956, when approximately 20,000 South African women staged a march on the Union buildings in Pretoria to protest against what was known as the pass laws of 1950. Pass laws were one of the dominant features of the apartheid system in South Africa and were designed to segregate the population and severely limit the movements of the non-white populace. The Black population was required to carry pass books with them when outside of their homelands or designated areas. And failure to produce a pass often resulted in that person's arrest. It's been said that any person, a white person in particular, even a child, could ask a Black African to produce his or her pass as proof that they were allowed to enter certain white areas. But on August 9th, 1956, the women left petitions containing more than 100,000 signatures expressing their anger and frustration regarding their freedom of movement. And they stood in solidarity silently for 30 minutes, many of them with children on their backs. And while they stood together, they sang a protest song that was composed in honor of the occasion, which included the phrase that translates to mean, when you strike a woman, you strike a rock. That phrase has become a symbol of the resilience of South African women and their sacrifices in the struggle for non-racial and a non-sexist South Africa. And it has come to represent women's courage and strength, not only in South Africa, but even beyond her borders. The march was a resounding success, and the bravery of these women who risk detention and arrest and banning is applauded and recognized every year in August in South Africa. Their united front sent a clear message that something had to be done to address the degrading, dehumanizing, and disenfranchising practices toward African people. And so as I reflect on your theme, I celebrate the legacy of these South African women as prophetic problem solvers. But not only them, how can we forget the nail-biting, churning week as thousands, possibly millions of eyes were glued to televisions awaiting the outcome of one of the country's grandest instant gratification traditions, the 2020 election. After 4 days of mounting tension, all of a sudden, it became clear to many of us who had been waiting with bated breath and with frustration that on that Saturday morning, the American people had made a decision to elect a new chief executive to the White House. One of the surprises of the week was when the state of Georgia flipped and turned blue for the first time since 1992. And despite all of the allegations of voter fraud and despite the allegations of a rigged election, for the first time in nearly 30 years, a Democrat, Senator Joseph R. Biden, became the 46th president of the United States. And we know that much of that victory was attributable to Stacey Abrams, Spelman and Yale Law School graduate, tax attorney, and former Georgia state representative who turned her personal electoral loss into a larger victory. The former candidate, who personally encountered racially driven voter suppression, rose up to make sure that the next time people of color could vote, they would vote in historic numbers. And instead of fading into the background or allowing her loss to consume her or rob her of her future possibilities, she climbed into the trenches. She formed an organization to register and empower voters, wrote a book about voter suppression, and co-produced an Amazon Prime documentary entitled All In the Fight for Democracy. Not only that, but building on the efforts of the New Georgia Project and others, Abrams and Fair Fight registered a staggering estimated 800,000, possibly more, new voters in 2018 and helped to squash suppressive policies directed at voters. And how can we forget Ida B. Wells, a trailblazer in every way, a feminist, a suffragist, an investigative reporter, and a civil rights leader. The pioneering African-American reporter counted and investigated and reported lynchings in America as no one has done before. Wells was a force of nature who once said one had better die fighting injustice than die like a dog or a rat in a trap. She destroyed the mainstream media's narratives that suggested that lynching victims were criminals or often rapists of white women who had received their just deserts. Her reporting showed that rape had not been alleged in 2/3 of the lynchings or was only alleged after a covert consensual interracial relationship had been exposed. It's been said that she was putting names to stories and names to statistics, that she was putting context into what was happening. We celebrate her legacy, but not just her legacy. How about Alicia Garza and Patrice Cullors and Opal Tometi, 3 self-described radical Black organizers who refused to keep silent in 2013 when George Zimmerman was acquitted of the charge of murdering Trayvon Martin, a Black teenager who was wearing a hoodie and carrying a bag of Skittles and a bottle of iced tea in a gated community. That was the spark that lit the Black Lives Matter movement. What started as a phrase in a love letter to Black people turned into a hashtag and eventually a movement. And then how can we forget Angela Davis, who has spent over 5 decades as an intellectual campaigning for racial justice, yet the causes she has pursued: prison reform, defunding the police, restructuring the bail system, best known as a radical African-American educator and activist for social rights and other social issues. And what about the daughters of Zelophehad, the game-changing sisters in the book of Numbers who faced a unique situation based on what I call an antiquated law that would leave them without an inheritance because their father died and left no sons? But these sisters were game-changing women. They developed a compelling case. They presented their argument to Moses, and God took the side of the women, and the law changed. And they left a model for future generations of how to pursue change. The sociologist and womanist scholar Dr. Cheryl Townsend Gilkes, or Jilks, was right when she coined the phrase, "If it wasn't for the women," to describe the importance of women in the Black church. Her assertion about the value and presence and work of women is not just true for the church, it's true for all of life. Jilks asserts that Black women have been a force to reckon with in every aspect of African American history. Though often out of sight but never out of mind, working behind the scenes, women have been acting out of a prophetic mandate, challenging systems, organizing and mobilizing for change. Their history and their legacy is our inspiration. Their history and their legacy is the stimulus for our efforts. Their history and the legacy is the stimulus for our efforts, for your efforts as you return or as you enter these sacred walls. We are inspired by their tenacity, by their fortitude, and by their resolve. And for these prophetic problem solvers and many others whose names time would not permit me to call, we are indebted to a vast host, indebted to a host of prophetic problem-solving women, courageous women, women of fortitude, women of strength, women of vision, women of ingenuity, who would not flinch in the face of difficulty. If it wasn't for the women, their voices, for their love, their care, their concern for our lives, our lives, our communities, our churches, our schools, our organizations, our government, our world would probably look drastically much different. How we thank God for their legacy. How we thank God for such an enduring legacy of community organizing and voter registration and social justice and advocacy. And may their legacy be our inspiration to lead and to learn and to live as prophetic problem solvers in a post-truth, post-pandemic world. A world that is in desperate need of reform, a world that is in need of upheaval, a world where racism isn't just getting worse, where sexism isn't just getting worse, where classism and other isms are not just getting worse, it's getting filmed. A world where racism is deeply embedded in our law enforcement system, a world with a broken criminal justice system, a world where the tables need to be turned, a world that is still bent on violence, a world where people refuse to wear masks and refuse to be vaccinated, a world where people are still seeking power and wealth, a world where there is a war on the poor, the marginalized, and yes, even a war on women. May God give us that same kind of chutzpah, that shameless audacity and reckless ambition that the women in South Africa, that Stacey Abrams, that Ida B. Wells, that Patrice Cullors, that Alicia Garza and Opal Tometi, Angela Davis and Maxine Waters and Keisha Lance Bottoms and Reverend Tracy Blackman and Septima Clark and Sojourner and Harriet and Fannie Lou Hamer had, so that we can build on that prophetic legacy. so that we might join God in the radical work of dismantling powers and principalities, standing up to the rulers of darkness of this world against spiritual wickedness in high places, where there is an erasure of Black women and girls and the challenges that they face from the public's consciousness and media landscape, the erasure that reinforces the hierarchy which values certain lives over others. May we not shrink back, so that we too might go to extraordinary length to change systems, to change structures, to impact this world, so that the kingdom might come on earth even as it is in heaven.
To our first year classmates, colleagues, and kinfolk, on behalf of the ITC Village, I want to extend to you a heartfelt welcome to the Interdenominational Theological Center. You enter at an extraordinary time into an extraordinary journey. This apocalyptic moment continues to unveil the ungodly forces that have unleashed and sustained multiple pandemics in the lives of our people. White supremacist politics, disproportionate death due to health inequity, destabilized nations reeling from years of imperialist interventions, and not to mention the uneven impact of extreme weather, even now, from climate change, driven by our endless need for extraction and consumption. This is not just the stuff of folks who follow headlines. This is the concern of those of us who follow in the way of Jesus. And so for us who have entered into this educational process at the ITC, it's important for us to remember that education is the process by which a community builds its capacity to solve its problems and co-create its future. And theological education at its best grounds this co-creation in prophetic imagination, ever seeking to embody what it means to be the kingdom of God. This is not merely the process by which an individual obtains a degree or is inducted into a privileged class by way of access to education. No, we brought with us a community. We brought with us ancestors. We brought with us kinfolk by blood and bond. And we brought with us a broader community whose questions and challenges we bring with us into our studies. So now our God, our ancestors, and our progeny call us forward into study, inquiry, community, and self-reflection to determine what it means to practice justice and peace through a liberating and transforming spirituality. When he was 19 years old, Howard Washington Thurman wrote a letter to Dr. Mordecai Johnson, who then was president at Howard University. In his letter, he discussed his insatiable desire to learn and to study in order to contribute to the well-being of Black people on these shores. In describing his motivation for seeking theological education, the young man who would later become Dr. Thurman said simply, "My people need me. Your people need you, now more than ever. So study, inquire, explore, discover, deconstruct, and construct as though their lives depend on it, because they do." Welcome to the ITC. God bless you.
Now unto our great God, who is from of old and who is stretched into everything is new. Now to our great God, we bless your people, we honor your people, and we are grateful for your presence to have been with us today. Now unto you, O great God, who will always present us faultless and keep us always and forever. Be you glory, dominion, and power, as you are the one who made us, framed us, formed us, kept us, delivered us, and who will keep us always. To you be glory, dominion, and power forever. We do say, amen, amen, ashe, ashe, ashe.